Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 92. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very, very special guest down in Alabama, Josiah Smelser. Josiah, how are you, man?
Doing good. So excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you. I was telling you before we recorded, one of my good friends and clients, Matt Green, has spoken so highly of you. I've seen your name pop up in more of the financial world. And this is a different kind of podcast than I'm guessing you've done in the past based on what I know about you. But I'm excited to dig into your life and talk about maybe some more challenging seasons of life for you. Before we get there, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, so Josiah Smelser, I've got a real estate podcast called The Daily Real Estate Investor, where I documented my journey to financial freedom while also interviewing other real estate investors that were on the same journey. I'm on Instagram at Daily Real Estate Investor, and that's where I interact with a lot of folks like Matt. That's where I met Matt, actually. And I would love to meet anybody and everybody that's interested in financial freedom, living a life of purpose. I'm a man of faith, so I take my faith seriously, want to put my family first. I really want to squeeze every ounce of life out of my time on earth and try to impact the world best I can. So, that's really where I am with my purpose now that I've reached financial freedom. So long story short, I graduated in 1999 and then I graduated high school in 99, got my degree. Then after that, had some jobs that I bounced around, just wasn't super happy with those 9-to-5 type stuff. Then I got a graduate degree, and finally, after trying the 9-to-5 world over and over and just having the same experience over and over, where I just didn't feel like I was a good fit. I started my own business, started working for myself, and from that point on, things took off. So I should have been running my own business long before that, but it's kind of a scary thing when you don't have any money and you're 21 and you don't have. Back then, like, I didn't listen to podcasts when I was 21. Like, the podcast thing blew up in the last 5 to 10 years for me. I'm 42 now. So, it's taken a while to find this path to where it took a while to find the path, first of all, to financial freedom and all that. But I got really interested in real estate investing after some of these jobs weren't working out. And then launching my own business. I'm a certified general appraiser. I'm a licensed broker. And then I've got a portfolio of vacation rental properties. That's where I make the lion's share of my income is. And I can talk about any of this stuff. I don't know, this answer may be too long, but I can talk about any of this stuff as much as you want. But we started off in single family, then transitioned everything over to vacation rentals. And I can dive into that if you want me to, but that's where the lion's share of my income comes from. And then I also make income as a broker and appraiser. And I'm also now working on getting into multifamily, but that I don't own any multifamily yet, but I'm also married and I've got 3 children. And that's the short story on, kind of where I am now.
Yeah, I appreciate all of that. And you're speaking my language. I am very much interested in building a life toward financial freedom.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the language you used right now in this intro is I'm assuming language that a lot of the listeners are not fully familiar with, and that's okay. If people are interested in learning more about that, I mean, you have so much content out there that they can consume.
Yeah.
Like I alluded to at the beginning here, this is going to be a little bit of a different kind of conversation. So I'm going to lead right in with the first big question. When you look back at your 42 years here on earth so far, what's the hardest thing that you've had to handle that you didn't get to choose for yourself? So circumstances that was out of your control that happened to you, the hardest thing, what was that?
It's funny you asked that because I'm actually going through it right now.
Oh,
So about a year ago, well, flashback to COVID. Okay. I got sick with COVID during that time, and it was rough, but I wasn't in the ICU or anything. But my uncle got it and he died. So that was really hard on our family. But after COVID happened, I kept getting these weird upper respiratory issues, and we thought it was COVID again. And so I would get it, I would get better from it. I would get it again in a week or two.
hmm.
And it got to where I was like, what is going on here? Because like I went from never get sick to getting sick all the time. And that was a different thing for me. And I try to approach when I'm sick, I try to still be positive. I try to shake it off. I don't try to load myself up with medicine. I just try to let my body fight it off. So this was a different experience because I was getting sick and I wasn't getting well and staying well. And so long story short, over the last year, it got so bad that I couldn't even sleep. I was so congested, all this stuff was happening that I couldn't even sleep. I had all kinds of doctor's appointments and they tried everything to figure out what was going on. And we finally figured out what it is. And it was, I had reflux that got into my lungs that I aspirated. I got it into my lungs and got bacteria in my lungs. And the bacteria started infecting, causing a lung infection. And the bacteria that I got is this really, really rare form of bacteria that most people don't get in their lungs and most people don't get sick from. And my body's just not fighting it off completely. So I'm still dealing with that. I deal with it every day. Like I have to sleep, with my bed up at a 45-degree angle. I'm actually looking at getting surgery for the reflux here pretty soon. I think that will help, but all the medicine I'm on is nuts for this lung infection that's going on. So the weird thing is, I'm not getting bad enough to be in the ICU, but I'm sick. So I'm not 100%, and I'm not bad enough. I'm not going downhill to the point where it's like my life's over, but I'm just like, it's like that song, like I'm not sick, but I'm not well. It's like I'm sick, but I'm not super sick, but I can't get completely well. So it's been a challenge mentally because a lot of nights I'm not even getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep. Like some nights it's really bad. Some nights I'm able to get 6, 7 hours, but I mean, I can't eat the stuff I did. I can't sleep. I can't even lay down. I can't bend over. Like it's really rough. It's been hard on my family. My kids want to know what's going to happen. So I've had to really like embrace this mental state of God's in control. I can beat this. It's going to take daily effort. I'm going to have to fight this like I've never fought anything before. I'm going to have a mindset of positivity because I don't control this. I didn't pick this, but I got to deal with it.
One, I'm so sorry to hear that you're going through that.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Of course, of course. Two, it sounds like you have a really positive perspective, or as positive as you can.
Yeah.
Three, I'm wondering, what is the prognosis for something like this? Does this get better with time? Do they not know? I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah. So what I have is called bronchiectasis, and bronchiectasis is like, it's basically lung damage. So, and the lung damage it doesn't go away. It's for the rest of your life. So good news is we caught it early. And then the infection is Mycobacterium avium complex. It's called MAC. And that can be treated with medicine, but the treatment outcome is not like, it's not like everybody who takes the medicine gets well. It's like you might not get well from this, but the medicine might keep it from getting a lot worse. And you can kind of live with this and deal with it the rest of your life kind of thing. You can get well, but a lot of people don't get well. So it's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me by order of magnitude, like 10x the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. So never in a million years that I think I'd be 42 dealing with this kind of thing. But I think that if I'm taking medicine now, the medicine I got to take, this is another thing. I got to take the medicine for 18 months, and it's 3 hardcore medicines. Like, so, I mean, I haven't had to take medicine for a month before. This is 18 months of medicine. So, um, I can get well. The lung damage is not going away. And it's weird because I'm not a smoker. Like I've done things the healthy way as best I could, but I've now got like long-term lung damage from this. So something I'm going to be dealing with the rest of my life on that side. If I could get rid of the bacterial infection, that would be great and get rid of the reflux. That's why I think the surgery for the reflux is going to fix that. I think my theory is the reflux caused the bronchiectasis, caused the lung damage because the reflux got in my lungs and burned my lungs. And then the reflux carried bacteria into the lungs, and that caused the MAC bacterial infection. So I think if I can stop the reflux, I can really start healing up and stuff. And I'm hopeful I do get well. I'm hopeful I'm the minority there that actually heals up.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a quote here that I want to read and then I have a follow-up question. So this is from Haruki Murakami, who said, despite your best efforts, people are going to hurt when it's time for them to be hurt. And sometimes really hard things and sometimes bad things happen to good people who are just trying to do their best. How do you reconcile the fact that this happened to you and you might have, been doing all the right things, yet this still happened?
Well, first thing I approach it from a perspective of like I probably could have done things better, right? Like, I mean, you can always get healthier. It seems like there's always ways to improve. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, but I also realize like there are people that are a lot more a lot less healthy than me. There's people that weigh a lot more, that have a lot worse habits, that don't get sick. And so I was talking to my wife about this last night. It's like reality is we're all going to die, right? So at some point something's going to happen to you that's out of your control, that could take you downhill and eventually cause you to die. And it's like, how am I going to handle that? So, and I think the good news about where I am, like I'm younger than most people that get this, and my doctor said like we caught this early. So I've been really proactive in figuring out what's been going on. When they've said, hey, we think you got this, and it just didn't fit, I just kept searching and kept searching and kept searching. So my mindset toward it has been like kind of like try to adopt a stoic mindset. Like I don't control what happens to me, but I control how I respond to it. So all I can do to make my situation better in my mind is pray and be as healthy as I can be and keep a positive mindset. Because if my mindset goes down, then like if I weren't taking all the measures that I am, like sleeping up, avoiding eating 5 hours before bed, taking all this medicine consistently, exercising, cutting foods out of my diet, not drinking, not smoking, like all this stuff, I could be dead right now with this, So it's like I gotta like get my mind right, and also like I want to be pleasant and be a nice person to be around for my family and friends as well. I don't just want to be this like strung out guy who's just like barely hanging on by a thin thread.
Mhm. I've got a Viktor Frankl quote that I think fits here.
Oh man, I love Viktor Frankl.
Well, if you love Viktor Frankl, I got two Viktor Frankl quotes. So
Wait,
the first is between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So it sounds like you are fully embracing that. And then the second quote, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And again, that's what you're controlling. In
yes,
the first quote, you're controlling your action, your response. And in that second quote, you're controlling your attitude, your perspective.
yes, yeah, and I loved his book. What's the book he wrote that's so good?
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of my favorites. I love it.
Me too. So, with that being said, I am curious if you could go back in time and say rewind to the beginning of COVID and you could avoid all of this, right? You could stop this from all happening. However, you had to give up your financial freedom and you had to kind of start from scratch in that area at 42 or 40, whatever you were at the time.
Yeah.
Would you trade your financial freedom for your health?
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah, in a heartbeat. I mean, the financial freedom. This is the thing about financial freedom. Like once you know how to do it, you could lose it all today and have it you could be financially free in several years, maybe even faster, but your health is something like it's a finite resource you have, just like your time. So it's like you got to take care of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great answer. And anybody who's ever had a cold could attest to the fact that no matter what else is going on in your life, whether you're on a beach, whether you're doing something you really enjoy with people you love, if you have a runny nose and a scratchy throat and you have a headache, right? It's just not fun. You just want that to
Yeah.
go away, right?
Yeah. And maybe, I'm hoping that somebody out there that's got reflux, like don't take it. I mean, take it seriously, because I never in a million years thought reflux could put me in a situation with a long-term lung infection, long-term damage to my lungs. Like,
Mm.
never even heard of that. So, like, if you've got reflux, like, try to figure it out and get it taken care of, because you don't want to let this go and have long-term issues like this. So,
Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing of it. So hopefully that helps somebody out there. With that being said, so that's the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you didn't choose. On the
yeah.
flip side, what is the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose, and why have you done that thing?
Oh man, I mean, I automatically think about having kids, right? But that's like the hardest thing and the best thing. So I don't know if that answer is what you're looking for or not, but I mean, choosing to have, I was talking yesterday with a guy I'm working on some real estate stuff with, but like, choosing to get married is a major life shift, and then choosing to have children is another major life shift, even bigger than getting married, in my opinion. So when you choose to have kids, you're at least I was embracing the concept of, I'm doing everything I can to raise this little person into a mature and productive member of society, that knows God, and raise them right. So it's like, from day one, it's like they come into the world and they're taking your sleep away, they're stressing you out, they're taking your money, but you love them more than anything in the world. So it is a daily dying to self to have kids, because you are constantly putting them ahead of yourself in healthy ways, right? I mean, you don't let them just run the show, but you gotta try to get them in the best place for them to be educated, take care of them spiritually, teach them life lessons, make sure they're not growing up to be a spoiled brat, that kind of stuff. So that's probably the hardest thing that I've chosen to do, and I would choose it again 1,000 times over.
Let's dig in there, and then I want to hear about maybe the hardest thing you've ever done in business.
Yeah.
But that phrase, dying to yourself, on episode 84 of this podcast, Colin Raddick brought that up, and I had him break it down. I would love for you to break down that phrase for anybody listening, just what that means to you and what that could mean for other people.
Yeah, I mean, dying to self is really, I think we're all born selfish, prideful beings that, it's human nature to want to preserve one's own life, right? And self-preservation can take a lot of different forms. It can get bad if you let it, because if you're like a couple of days ago, I took my kids to the zoo, and everybody's standing in line to get a ticket, and this one lady walks up, looks at the line, shaking her head, and just goes and gets in front of the line in the very front and cuts in front of everyone. Like, to me, that's a person that does not value the life and time of others the same they do themselves. And
Hmm.
um I was watching a Mr. Beast video, and he did a poll, and the poll was, if you could have $100,000, but someone on the other side of the world dies, would you take the $100,000? And 50% of the people said yes.
Whoa.
Like, that blows my mind. It's like, that should be such a no-brainer. No, I wouldn't take the money because it's killing someone. But that's like the dying to self principle, I guess. Like, I realize that, like, my time in life is valuable, but I have to put my children and their well-being and raising them before myself. And if you did this would correct a lot of issues that go on in families. Like, nobody's perfect, right? But it takes dying to self to be in a healthy marriage. It takes dying to self to raise kids. So, when you're not having this frame of, you're not in this headspace, if in your marriage, if you get tired of your spouse and somebody else attractive comes along, you just bail on your spouse. if you get tired of taking care of your kids, tired of getting up at night with them when they have nightmares, tired of, writing checks for all the expenses, tired of taking them to the hospital when they get hurt, tired of all this, you just head out with your buddies to go drink or whatever. It's like, and you have a broken home and the kids grow up messed up, and there's just all these ripple effects that all this stuff has. So it's like you have to embrace this mindset of like, my life is more about others and how I interact and impact others than it is about just me. It's not just me having fun. Like that's the worst. It's nice to have fun, but that's the worst approach to life. Is like, how can I have the most fun? Right. That just leads you to a dark place.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase that pops into my mind is it's not about me. It's not about us as individuals. It's about
Yeah,
the greater good, the bigger impact. And
exactly.
it's cool to hear that you parent that way. And I'm sure that trickles into every other aspect of your life. Is parenting the easiest or the hardest place to do that for you?
Uh, mm, I mean, are you referring to like practice putting others before myself?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's probably easier because I love these kids more than anything. Like it's a little harder when you run into somebody at Walmart that's cutting in front of you in line or whatever to say like, I love this person. Like I gotta try to help them, because your knee jerk reaction is like, what's wrong with this person, so I think it's probably a little easier with your own children than it is strangers. But I mean, one of the reasons I'm hustling so hard with my real estate business is I want to start an entity that starts schools, children's homes, and churches. And that would be the flip side of the Mr. Beast thing. Like I want to give money away to save people's lives. So, that's why that poll shocked me so much, is like, I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to take my money and help save people's lives. And like seeing that 50% of people want to do the opposite, it just kind of breaks your heart a little bit. But that's my long-term goal. And that's why I want to keep going. That's what I feel like my purpose is. So,
Yeah, I love that. So with that being said, I would love to hear about in the business world, what's the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose and why have you pursued that?
okay. So this goes into my bigger pockets episode, but, one of my childhood friends approached me. This is about 5 years ago. I had zero real estate at that point, but one of my best friends approached me and he said, "Hey, I had a good year in sales. I want to get into real estate. I know you're an appraiser and a real estate agent, and you've owned some stuff in the past that you've sold. You know, how do I invest in real estate?" And I was like trying to explain it, and he's like, "I don't know if I feel good about doing it by myself, but what do you think about us partnering up?" I said, "Sure." I said, "How about you fund the deals? I'll find the deals. I'll run point on getting the deals renovated, refinance, try to get all of our capital back, and we can start building a portfolio of rental properties this way." And so we spent the next 2 years. I would find the properties. I was doing all the legwork. I was also running my appraisal business and acting as a broker and, trying to help my kids. Since I'm the working from home, I'm kind of like if a kid's sick, I'm the one getting them and bringing them home because my wife is a counselor and she's away. So I was managing all of that. And we did some of this during COVID when everything was shut down. So, and we had the real estate market just froze on a dime, and we had all these flips go. We had 10 flips going at that time, and we had 20 properties that we had ended up buying and using this reno process and refi process. We had 20 properties in our portfolio that were rented. So anyway, we did that in about 2 years. So we went from zero to $4 million in properties in 2 years. And the crazy thing is, and I'm an open book on all this stuff. I used to be really hidden with all this, but I don't really see the point anymore because I think it can help others. But I don't say this pridefully. I say this because this is what God has done. This is a blessing. He's blessed our efforts. But we went from 0 5 years ago to 17 million right now, and it's been very challenging because we had COVID happen in the middle of it, and we went from having 10 renos going to we couldn't get our contractors to leave their house, and all of our lenders wanted their money back, our hard money lenders. And we were like at this spot where we were like, I don't know what we're going to do. And then at that point, everybody was saying, well, the real estate market's going to implode. What actually happened is everything shut down, but then when it reopened, it went crazy because of all the stimulus money that was handed out. So it's been this like manic, these real estate markets have been these manic swings
Mm.
of does it, everything's going to zero to everything's going to infinity. And now we're back in another state where the Fed's raising rates so aggressively that it's getting hard for potential homeowners to find properties they can afford. So now there's an affordability crisis. So, when you build a business, you don't get to pick the environment that you're in. It's kind of like you just deal with it and try to navigate that process and try to be strategical on what you're doing. So, I mean, that's been I couldn't even tell you the number of problems we've had to solve the whole way, but it's been so valuable because, we built a lot of equity and now we have this cash flowing vacation rental portfolio. So the real awesome thing that happened was after we had those 20 properties, we're like, okay, we got 20 properties worth $4 million. We've got about $2 million in equity in these. If we sell these and move that $2 million over into vacation rentals, we would go from about $40,000 a year profit to about $500,000 a year profit. So over 10x, it's like a 12.5x on your profit. So we did that. It took us about it took us between 6 and 12 months to get it all sold and moved over to using 1031 exchanges to save money on our taxes. But so we built this high cash flow portfolio of vacation rentals. And in the meantime, I got my broker license up in the Smokies in this Pigeon Forge Gatlinburg market. So I'm a broker up there, help a lot of people that are interested in buying vacation rentals, buy vacation rentals up there. Because the cool thing about this is one vacation rental, if you self-manage it, this is really cool. This could save a lot of people a lot of money, by the way. One vacation rental, if you self-manage it, you can pretty much through using a cost segregation study, you can save, and using that depreciation, accelerating that depreciation, you can pretty much save all the money you pay in taxes this year. So if you're a high earner, let's say you and your family brings in $200,000 a year and you're in a 30% tax bracket, or let's say your blended rate is 30%. We'll say 250,000. What would that be? It'd be three times. It'd be $75,000 in taxes. Well, if you get one vacation rental and you do a cost seg study and you accelerate that depreciation, you're pretty much going to get about $75,000 back on your taxes. Plus, you're going to get the cash flow of $30,000, $40,000 profit a year. Plus, you get a property going up in value being paid off. So this is like game changer investment kind of stuff. So I try to share this with everybody because if you're trying to reach financial freedom, the single family route is slow and steady. But if you want to pour gasoline on it, look into a vacation rental because the depreciation part, you getting that $75K back on your taxes could be a game changer for your family in your financial picture because that $75K can buy another property and then you get that depreciation again. And so it's just a cycle. You cycle that money into properties instead of paying it in taxes. And it's all completely legal. It's set up by the tax code.
So I've got a couple things here. One, This is so timely. About 2 hours before recording this episode, I sat down with my accountant, looked at everything tax wise for this past year. Not my favorite conversation I've ever had. And so, at the same time, while it's overwhelming to run a business like I'm doing, like you're doing, I think real estate is scary for a lot of people because everything you just said can feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose, right? Like There's just a lot. Without going too far into it, if somebody is interested in learning more about real estate, and then we can extrapolate to learning more about anything, where would you say the best place to start for somebody who knows zero about real estate is?
I mean, I would say get the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. That book will kind of ignite a fire for this whole thing. The great thing about real estate is you're not doing anything way outside the box. Like the tax code is set up to support you and actually give you benefit for doing this. Lenders will lend you money on real estate all day long. They love lending money on real estate. And it's once you understand how to properly run the numbers, anybody can do it. So, and if people tell you the market's too overheated, I heard that when I started 5 years ago. So they say that every year. I hear every year the market's overheated. So if you wait until the market's not overheated, you're probably waiting for some catastrophic event where everybody's terrified of investing in real estate, and you got to ask yourself, are you going to take action then? If you know, so I would say as long as your numbers work, you can buy stuff in any environment as long as your numbers are working and the cash flow is there. So the question of where to learn how to do it, you really learn real estate investing by doing it. So it's like when I hiked the Appalachian Trail. I did a through hike, and I was going to hike from Georgia to Maine in 6 months. And everybody asked me, like, "Are you training for it?" It's like, how do you train to hike every day for 6 months? You know, well, the only way you can do it is really go out there and hike, and you get your trail legs, they call it, after a couple weeks. But any preparation I did before that of going out for 2 or 3 hour hikes, it didn't do anything. It's like you got to be able to hike for 12 straight hours with 30, 40 pounds on your back, going straight up and down mountains to get ready for this. So, it's hard to prepare for something like that. It's kind of like real estate investing. Like, you read books, listen to podcasts, network with people who do it. But really the best thing you can do is go get yourself a property and start learning it. And as your investor IQ develops, you will get more and more okay with taking bigger risks. And that's what moves the needle for your financial freedom the most. Like, what made the biggest difference in my life, although getting the first property was huge, these vacation rentals just exploded everything. But when I started off, buying a $2 million vacation rental would have been terrifying for me. Now I'm like, it's nothing, like I'm perfectly okay with it. Now I'm trying to get myself ready to go buy larger apartments, and that's scary to me. So it's like, work yourself into it. But I would say the best thing you can do is go get yourself a property as soon as possible and start learning it. And then just, inundate yourself with podcasts, books, anything you can get your hands on.
Yeah, there's a term, stress inoculation, which
Yeah,
I think applies here, right? What was once scary or incredibly stressful might not be the case if you continue to push in that direction.
exactly.
I had no idea you hiked the entire Appalachian Trail.
Well,
And
okay. I hiked Georgia to Pennsylvania, which is nothing to,
scoff at.
yeah, exactly. But I did half of it. But this was when I was in my early 20s and not married, and I had saved like $5,000 to do this. Well, I got halfway through, and I was with a buddy of mine, and he and I had both spent like almost all of our money, because we were eating so much more than we thought we would. Like, I saw a statistic on what they think, like, hikers in their 20s, how many calories they're burning. It's like 16,000 to 20,000 calories a day.
Oh,
So, I mean, I was spending all my money on just buying groceries, because I was losing so much weight. I couldn't stop losing weight. And so anyway, we got about halfway, and we're looking at our check, we're looking at our bank accounts, and we're like, we're not even going to come close to finishing without going into major debt, and while the temptation was to do that, like, I'm not the kind of person that can just rack up debt and not worry about it. Like, so I said, I'm gonna stop halfway, and I'm gonna come back at some point in my life, and I'm gonna start over in Georgia, and I'm gonna go back to Maine. I'm gonna do the entire thing. So,
did you do that yet?
I have not done it yet because now I'm married with kids. So I would love to.
With the lung
That's a
stuff.
bucket list thing for me.
Yeah, that's going to be quite a challenge.
Yeah.
So I have a question I ask everybody. It's about the
Yeah.
concept of endurance. However, before I ask that question, I want to almost put a little pause in this conversation, share a short story, and get your take on it. So,
Sure.
are you familiar with the story of the businessman and the fisherman?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I'm gonna make a longer story short. I don't know where this originated from, so it's not my story, but it essentially goes, there's a fisherman on a beach somewhere, let's say South America, and this businessman is there on business from North America. And he sees the fisherman. The fisherman's relaxing on the beach, listening to music, eating his lunch, just with his line in the water, enjoying life. The businessman goes up to him and says, "Hey, if you invest some money into this and maybe put a little bit more work into this, you can buy a bigger rod and catch more fish. And then when you catch more fish, you can then use that money to buy a boat with a net. And then when you do that, you can hire some staff, and you can go further and further and further out into the ocean and catch more and more fish and make more and more and more money." And this entire time, the fisherman continues to push back with the question, well, why would I do that? And the businessman continues to answer with, because you can do it bigger and better and make more money, eventually to get to the point where you can retire and all you have to do every day is sit on this beach and eat your food, enjoy the sun, and just catch some fish. And the fisherman looks at him and laughs and says, well, what do you think I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, when we think about financial freedom or we think about finances in general, we think about saving, working hard, saving, delayed gratification. And one day, when we're in our 50s or 60s or 70s or whatever, we can then retire and do nothing or do whatever we want to do at the expense of all the years prior. And I'm curious your take on that story, because it sounds like you have put in a tremendous amount of hard work. You've endured a tremendous amount of stress to get to this point of financial freedom at a younger age than most people. What's your take on that story?
Oh, I love that story. I mean, that story is really the motivation. I mean, there's two ways to look at it. One is, do you need to do everything to become financially free because you're already fishing, right? But the reality is, unless the guy's already retired, he's got a job that's giving him stress and he's got bills to pay. He may not have enough money for all this other. So I look at it as like kind of a combination of what it's saying. Like, if you could accelerate things in your life to where you could be financially free soon enough to be able to enjoy the lion's share of your life doing things that you love and that you were put on earth to do to help others, that is a compelling thing to do. Like, I think the biggest problem we have is the vast majority of people are working jobs that their heart's not in. They're spending their time doing things that they don't feel like they were created to do, and they're not getting ahead. So, I think concentrated, focused work to become financially free and get to a place where you have time freedom, because it's not just about making money, right? Who cares about money? The money is really there to buy yourself time freedom. Like, the time freedom is how you get to go fishing, right? So, as long as you've got time freedom, you don't really need money, right? It's like you can't buy more years of your life back. So, I think there's a balance. There's a balance, right? The balance is working hard enough to get yourself the time freedom you need to enjoy your life and to live a productive life. Because the odd thing is, for me, I reached financial freedom in 5 years of doing this, and the odd thing to me is, the second I got to financial freedom, I'm not the kind of person that wants to sit on the beach for the rest of my life or play golf. Like, those things are fun, but that's boring. It's going to be boring to me if I do it for more than like 2 days, right? So, I'm immediately like, what's next? What am I going to do next? And now I'm trying to find the next thing to work on, because I enjoy working. I enjoy being productive. So, I guess, long story short, I think figuring out the proper balance in your life and knowing that there isn't some special magical like place you're going to reach once your retirement age, and you've worked 70 years in a job you don't like, or 65 years or 60 years in a job you really didn't like, to get to retirement. Like, there's stories about people that get to retirement and die their first year, and don't get to spend any of that money they saved, they didn't take those trips they wanted to take. So, like, do it now. You know what I mean? Take those trips, spend time with your loved ones, have fun. But also, like, I propose, like, live a different way so you can maximize your time and make an impact on the world. And you can do that through financial freedom. It's accessible to you.
And I should have had you do this earlier in the podcast, but if you had to very briefly define financial freedom for people who don't know what that is, how would you define that?
Yeah, so I look at it simply as your investments are bringing you more money than your bills monthly. So, and I like to have some excess there. Like, you don't, if your bills are $5,000 a month, you don't just want $5,000 in income. You want probably $7,000 in income, right? So you got some to put back in savings or to invest. So, the trick is, if you can get to a point where, let's say you're bringing in $10,000 a month and your bills are $5,000, well, and you're taking out giving and, say you're putting a little in savings, and, but the trick is to keep investing. Investing is really paying yourself. And I was telling one of my friends this the other day. He doesn't own any rental properties. And they say they're saving, but and he wants to buy a property. But I was telling him, you can't really save yourself into financial freedom.
Mhm.
You got to really invest your way into it, because the bank is giving you very little on your money, and even now with these higher CD rates, like at 5%, inflation being as high as it is, it was like 15% last year. It's not going to stay that high, but let's say it's 3% a year. If you're getting 5% on your money, you're only outpacing inflation by 2%. So try growing your money at 2% every year. It's going to take you an eternity to save enough money for it to grow in enough money for you to really be financially free. So you have to invest wisely. And so the trick is, your investments are bringing you in more than your bills, and you've got more to reinvest. So if you keep investing in that and building that investment machine, then it just goes up from there.
Got it. I appreciate that definition.
Yeah, sure.
Now, to continue with the flow of this conversation, the next question is a simple one. When you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
Uh, well, I automatically, like, I ran cross country in high school, so that's only a little over 3 miles. That's not really like a marathon or anything, but I automatically think, there's sprinters and there's endurance athletes. Endurance is really just being able to hang in there and keep going. It's more of a long term thing, long term mindset, long term requirements, involved. So, like with what I'm dealing with my health, it's an endurance thing. Like I'd be shocked if I woke up tomorrow and everything's gone. Like I'm at a place where I'm not believing that's going to happen. I hope for that, but it's really an endurance thing with my mindset towards it, and life is an endurance event. Like if you are sprinting in any category in your life, typically things can get way out of balance pretty fast.
Um, Do you think that it's possible to have lasting endurance without hope?
Lasting endurance without hope. Uh, it's very challenging. Very challenging. Like hope is hope is really the resource that one needs to really be productive, I think. Um, I mean, if you know people that have lost hope, which we all know some people that maybe have lost hope, it's a pretty bleak situation, because they just don't have a reason to get up and do anything anymore. So I think sometimes just instilling hope in someone that's losing hope can be a ministry opportunity,
Mm.
because like, and that's the thing about, being a Christian. Like my hope is in Jesus. That's where my faith is. Like I have hope that there's something after this life, right? So even in the worst case scenario here with my physical health or my business or my family or whatever, like I still have that hope.
Mhm.
But if you lose hope, then what do you have,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's really cool from my perspective to sit here 92 episodes in to hear how big of a part faith of all different kinds, but especially the Christian faith has popped up over and over and over again. I'm a Christian. Uh, how important that is for people who have endured, who have gone through hard things, who have found strength in struggle, who have built resilience through resistance, who continue to push on and with a smile, oftentimes do really hard things because they have that hope, they have that faith. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Oh yeah, man, my pleasure.
So, the last question of the podcast is a really special one to me. There are people all over the place listening to this, going through all different sorts of things. And as you and I both know, everybody's struggling with something. So, right now, if you get to speak to somebody who's going through a dark season, a hard time, they're just not sure what to do or where to go next, what would you say to that person?
I would say one of the biggest things in my life that's helped me through what I'm going through, which is the hardest and darkest thing I've experienced, is daily time with God. Um, when I wake up too early, like some mornings I'm waking up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Like I want to sleep till 7, but some mornings I'm waking up way too early. If I'm in that place and I got to get up, a lot of times I've been going to my office and just having some time praying having some time in the Word, having some time listening to some worship music, like spending time on your faith. So I would say like getting your mind, like the mind is the most powerful muscle in the body, right? If your mind is messed up, then you're in a really rough place. And so having hope, I think, starts in the mind. So you gotta lean on your faith, and you got to spend time making sure your mind is healthy and your mind's in a good place. And I think even when you find your mindset getting more negative because of what's going on, take some time to try to refresh and reboot, have some downtime. It's okay to have some rest, not go to some things because you're just tired mentally. But just know that there is hope, regardless of how hopeless you feel. There is hope for you in your situation. There are people who have dealt with it before. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. And I like thinking about people like Viktor Frankl, right? In a concentration camp, survived all that chaos and madness and wrote these incredible books. Like, you don't know this is the number one reason to have hope. You don't know what God has planned for you. You don't know, like, God could have this, you could be going through this so that you can write an amazing book that helps millions of people later. Like, you don't know what God's plan is. So don't presume that your life is over and that you are hopeless, because you don't know everything. So keep your head in a headspace where God could be using this for something.
Oh man, so special to me. My first tattoo, and I have two, so really not that many, but my first one is inspired by a quote that I've shared many times in this podcast, but it's just too good not to share again. Christine Kane: sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but you've actually been planted. And that's what I heard you just say. Hard things aren't necessarily bad things. And just because you don't see how something fits into the bigger picture right now in this moment doesn't mean that it won't down the road. And so thank you for sharing
Love
that.
it. Love it, man. That's an awesome quote.
So that being said, I know you shared a little bit about this in the beginning, but if anything you said resonated with people listening, people want to reach out, thank you, learn more about what you do, or just follow
Yeah.
along with your journey, where should they do that?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. The handle is at Daily Real Estate Investor. And if you want to get in touch with me, you could get on there, shoot me a DM. If you want to get in touch via email, my email is Josiah Smelser at gmail.com. That's JOSIAHSMELSER at gmail.com.
Cool.
And yeah, those two places. And then the podcast is The Daily Real Estate Investor, and it's on all the podcast platforms. And I'm in the process of getting my podcast over on the video and doing weekly video episodes, and that's on YouTube, and that's also The Daily Real Estate Investor on YouTube. So yeah, and I love connecting with people, and I love doing stuff like this. This has been awesome, and this has been encouraging for me. So I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Josiah, and I'm wishing you all the best with everything you're going through. I have no doubt that God will use this for good. So thank you again.
Thanks, Joe, man. I really appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.